Hi everyone, this is Dimonas. This is my second video about the Tarot, and in this particular video we're going to talk about the Thoth Tarot deck, because this is the one I've been studying for a very long time, and I think this is a very interesting deck with a lot of symbolism and a lot of symbols and pieces important to understand the decks in general, because a lot of them works in the same way. Okay, so we're going now to see some of the difference between another deck. At your left side of the screen you can see the Strength by Rider-Waite, and in your right side of the screen is Lust. The one is the replacement for the Strength by Aleister Crowley. Okay, the Strength in the Rider-Waite deck symbolize of course the strength and the mystery of the divine union. This one is connected with virginity and with purity. Both of these are necessary to the contemplation of God. This symbolized faith. By the other hand, the Lust of Aleister Crowley, this changed all that for the true will of the magician in this ion. I don't know if you are familiarized with the ion world. Now we're moving on with the World by Rider-Waite and the Universe by Aleister Crowley. The world, according to Rider-Waite, represents the end of the cosmos and its inner secret, submission of the soul to the divine contemplation. The world is the place in which divine law governs or reigns. Crowley defines it by the fact that we are not a land or an earth. Each one of us is an own universe, different, individual. This one symbolizes the end of the great work, perseverance, and reward for the constant work. Moving on, now we have the Temperance, that according to Waite is the ability to harmonize the intellectual nature with the material. There is a path that represents the spiritual path, which only when the end is reached leads to know the secret of eternal life. Crowley changes the Temperance by the art, which I will mention again later. For now, it is worth to mentioning that is the card of transmutation through the union of opposites. Now for the card of Justice from Rider-Waite, he maintained the ancient illustration, which is attributed to the meaning of the moral judgment of the discernment of what is right and what is wrong, in order to stay in the divine way. On the other hand, Crowley changed it by the adjustment, and this card implies balance, does not remove something from one side to another to put the things in justice. It represents the commitment and work with the great work that has to do the magician. And now, finally, we're going to see the Ion and the Judgment. Well, so the Judgment represents the eternal spiritual conquest, shows in the middle of the card, as you can see, to the angel who comes to rise the dead from their graves. This one is the eternal promise of resurrection made by Jesus Christ long time ago, while the Ion, by the other hand, calls for letting all of our acts be based on love and devotion. Other of the remarkable resources used in the making of the cards is the application of Euclidean geometry. I think is well said. I don't know. You can correct that. That is basis of the projective geometry. The subject is quite extensive, but by the way of our rough summary, we will say that this geometry seeks to represent the perpetuation and infinity of things. This means is an example is like two parallel lines. At some points they are going to touch each other in one point at least. There is a small drawing in green color so that so you can appreciate a little of the things I've said, because I really don't know how to explain this, because it's a little bit mathematical thing and I'm not so good in that. Okay. The cards have this geometry as a very important element in its elaboration, since this gives each one an energetic dimension, not only a flat meaning. As you can see in the pictures, the letters are related to each other by their form. Well, some of these letters are sketches discarded by Aleister Crowley, while Frida Harris was painting them. Okay, so those are some of examples of this Euclidean geometry I'm talking about. Personally, I have to say that this version of the moon is such a pretty one. I really love this one because of course, if you don't know, this card is all the meaning to woman, to the womb, and all the blood and the moon blood and all that stuff is a really good image of the card. In fact, it's kind of more pretty than the card we use regularly. I don't know, I like it. Okay, we're going to move on with another element of the cards. In this picture, I'm showing you a picture of a book I have. This one is for Nuit, written by Klaus Hoffmann. He is a German member of the audio, and he made a really interesting work with all the cards of the deck, and he related this to the phrase or quotes from the Nuit part of the Book of the Law. So the first part, the first chapter. In this one, we see the Hermit and the Hierophant, as you can see, all related by geometry. And above it says, "Be-du Hadid, my secret center, my heart and my tongue." This is a very interesting work. I hope you can get this book because it's really good to understand some of the meaning of the cards and of course the Book of the Law. Okay, it's so sad that it's just the first part now, which is Nuit. I hope the other one come out soon because it's a very pretty work, and of course very interesting. Interesting. What happened to my English today? I'm sorry. Well, let's move on. As I said, the tarot is a system that represents the universal process. Within them, we have multiple representation. One of them is the representation of the four worlds in the cards that are absolute, which is fire, therefore represented by the wands, which is the divine power, the logos and the word. Then we have Bria, which is water, represented by the cups and the understanding of the magician. Then we have Jetsira, which is the air, represented by the sword and the reason of the magician. And finally, we have Asia, which is the earth, represented by the disc, the desire, the body, and the temple of the magician. All of this about the worlds, we can talk about these things, but in another video because it's a little bit longer. Okay, if you want to know, please make me the suggestion below. This is a little bit complex, but I'm going to try to explain it to you. The cards of the cups, the wands, the discs, and the swords goes in the sephira corresponding to their number. That is to say, for example, the two of cups goes in the sephira with the number 2, or the second sephira, as well as the two of wands, two of disc, and two of swords. These 4 cards are contained in this second sephira. Okay, this thing is very important and is very helpful when you are trying to interpret the cards and the energy that influences it. The spheres, therefore, their cards, the cards that goes in the sephiroth are flowing energy. Okay, sorry if I'm a little bit complicated here, but this is a little bit complex. So this is a energy that is flowing all the time. Okay, by the other hand, we have the cards that are on the path, the card that united one sephira or one sphere to another. Okay, in this path are located the major arcana or atus, as are mentioned or called in the Thoth Tarot. This energy is a little more static and influenced by the connecting spheres. For example, we see the card of the tower that connects Netzah, which is the sphere of Venus, with Hod, which is the sphere of Mercury. You have to apply both influences in the interpretation of the card. All this is quite complex, I know, and too complicated to explain and too complicated to understand, I know, but it's very interesting. And seriously, I invite you to do it and tell me how it goes, if you can apply this, or of course, again, if you have doubts, just leave a comment below. I'll try to explain it to you. We also have to talk about the core cards, which are composed of knights, prince, queens, and princes. Each of them represents an element. Knights represent fire, prince represent air, queens represents water, and princess represents earth. There are 4 core cards of each element, so that a kind of let me see, of swords represents fire, of air, while a knight of swords represents fire of air. Another important consideration when this is another important consideration if you want to interpret the cards. The elemental cards, as well as you can see, the number 1 represents the element in its purest and exalted form. This emptied in the elemental pentagram would look something similar to this, in which the one of cups